Good evening, everybody. We've still got a minute or two before we're going to start, but thought I'd just say hello and thank you for being here. And can everybody see my screen? That I've got Phantom up and my whole 60 client area. People saying yes, they can see it.
They can see it.
Okay, good. Go back to that.
Nice.
And where did Phantom go? There we go. All right. Have you got right on the hour?
We're good to go.
Okay. Okay, everybody. Glad to see you here. This is Rod Alley from Locustware. And we'll be joined by Kim and Doug with we're each doing our own piece here. And I was asked to show you a couple of different ways of moving the files. Once I've built a campaign using Phantom, how do I get the files over to my hosting account? Well, I think one of the easiest ways is to use File Manager. Now, how do we get to File Manager? Does anybody remember? I hope you do. I like to just go to Services, My Services. After I'm logged in, of course, I go to host60.com. I go to client area and log in, right? So you can see I'm logged in. And then I come over here and I go Services, My Services. That shows me all of my services, all my hosting accounts. I've only got I think a dozen here, but I also have my own VPS. So the one I'm going to look at today, we're going to use rodskippedideas.club. And to get to the cPanel, it's easiest if you just click on the gray area around it. If I click on this, it'll take me right to the domain and show me what's on the domain. I'm not trying to get there. I'm trying to just get to the hosting account for that. And when I do that, it brings up rodskippedideas.club. And I can just click on it over here and log into cPanel. Like so. That way I don't need, now the other way, of course, is you could do, I used to do a spreadsheet, something like this that would keep track of all my domains with my usernames and passwords, which of course I blacked out because I didn't want people logging in as me. And you could keep track of them that way as well and get there by you plug it in your username and your password and log it in to your cPanel that way. But I find the easiest way is just to go through my hosting client area, and then I don't even have to remember my username and password. It just logs me in. And if I ever need to remember my username, it's right there. My password, of course, is a bunch of dots, so I'd have to either, but if I ever lose my password, that's another thing that's here, is I can change my password. And remember that this password is the same password that's used for cPanel access is also used for your FTP access. So if you ever change it and you're doing, let's say you have a site set up in FileZilla or WinSCP, you got to remember that whatever you change it to here will also be your FTP password for your main account. So first thing I do when I see that I'm in cPanel, up in the upper left-hand corner is File Manager. And of course, I want to go to my public HTML, which is my main domain. And a lot of people ask me questions of how many subfolders can I create? I don't understand subfolders. Well, all there is to create a subfolder is just clicking plus folder and naming it something. So I could create hundreds if I wanted to. However, if I'm talking about subfolders full of OTP phantom materials, I probably want to stick to about a maximum of 10 per domain, maybe 6 to 8 to, between 6 and 10 is a good number for a given domain. And I use different languages. So I could create one folder here called Mopeds 1A. The 1A is just my campaign number. And then I might have another one. After I do that, I could create another one, Mopeds 1A Spanish, ES for Spanish. Create that. So I could create as many of those as I want, and then I can drag the contents from the uploads folder over into here and do it that way. But that's not my favorite way of doing it. I like Nath's way. Nath has a way that what she's going to do is go and upload a folder. When you click upload, I could either drag some files over into this area, or I could select a file. And when I select a file, I've already got mine pointed to the path for our OTP Phantom projects. But even if I didn't, let's say I'm all the way at the C drive. Now I can navigate down through users and then ROD and then app data and then roaming and then locustware, then OTP Phantom, then my projects. Or there's a faster way too. If I've got C if it's on my C drive and I've got C in the path there, I could just type in % app data. And that takes me right to my app data folder and actually opens it up in the roaming. And then there's locustware, there's OTP Phantom, and there's my projects. So I'm going to look at uploading one called Moped 1B. Now, the thing that's important is whatever I put in here has to match what my files end up in, what my file folder is called in my file manager, because this is how the connection is made between what's in here and my links. So that's the most important thing, is that when I end up with file folders in my file manager, whatever I call them, if I say cancel here, whatever I call them here, when I make the file folder or when I drag one in and rename it, whatever I call that has to match what I showed you in OTP Phantom as your site destination, right? Otherwise, your links won't work, I promise you. Okay? So I'm going to need a folder in there for this campaign. I'm going to need a folder in there that's just called Moped. So again, I could either make one by just clicking plus folder and naming it Moped, or I can go upload, navigate to my proper location, which I showed you could just go % app data % and get here. But there's my upload file for my Moped 1, or I can go to my Moped 1B campaign. It really doesn't matter what project I use. I believe I put Moped on all of them. So there's my folders that are there for my Moped 1B campaign. I can open the upload and I could drag all of these in individually, like so. Or this way. And this works best if you have 7-zip installed. when I've got 7-zip installed, look what happens when I right click on any folder in my Windows Explorer. I see a 7-zip option. And easiest one to choose is add to upload.zip. So I'm going to do that. So it immediately takes all the content of my upload folder and makes it into one object, which is one compressed folder named upload. Then I select that to be uploaded. And it quickly uploads it. Now I go back to File Manager. Make sure I'm in my public HTML. And I'm going to refresh the screen somehow. And there you see my upload zip. Well, the only problem is you can't leave it zipped. So we have to unzip it, which is the same words that File Manager uses for extract. So I can extract it like so. So now I have a zipped file called uploads and an unzipped file called uploads, right? I'm going to rename that. What do you think I'm going to rename that to? That's right. I'm going to rename it Moped. Why? Because that's what I told. That's what I told Phantom was my folder name. If I had put Moped 1A or Moped English or Moped Spanish or whatever I might have put there, doesn't matter what I call it, but whatever I call it has to match what I put in my file manager. So now, if you look, there's all the files that were inside my uploads. Boom, they're all in a file folder called Moped. And I can do this over and over and again from each campaign. Each time I do the upload, I just rename it. After I get done zipping it over on this side and unzipping it on that, once it gets here, then I just rename it to whatever my campaign said was the folder name. And of course, if I did another campaign, I want to make that folder a different name because I can't have two folders in the same area named the same exact thing. So I might call it Moped A or Moped B or Moped 1A or whatever. As long as it's different, then it cannot be the exact same name in the same location. Everyone understand that? So that's all there is to moving the appropriate files. All I have to get is what was in the upload, nothing else. So in the campaign, when I went to select file, I was in the campaign. I forgot. We don't call them campaigns anymore. In Phantom, we started calling them projects. Same thing though, okay? So in my projects, I had several of them. I want to make sure I get the right one. And I want to make sure that it matched up with, I named the folder exactly what I had named the folder in my when I built my campaign. Now, anybody with a real sharp eye will notice that I messed this up. And so I'm not going to actually end up using this because I did a rods@giftideas.com. And really, the domain is rods@giftideas.club. You make a mistake like that, and you'll soon learn that nothing works. But Dougie's going to show you later how I could take that same campaign, clone it as a new campaign, and put the correct information in, and go merrily about my way. But that's what Dougie is going to do. Well, I hope I didn't steal his thunder. Now, there's another way, and some people like to use an FTP program to do the same thing. Now, like I said, that way is just about as easy as any. If you can figure out how to log into your file manager, you're basically there. You know, now it's just a matter of when you click on upload and then select file, you got to be able to navigate to your locust store folder and your OTP Phantom and your projects folder and then find the right project. grab the uploads, grab what's in the uploads, and then when you're done, make sure it's renamed to the same thing that you told Phantom that the folder was named. Simple, right? I'll show you another simple way. I like using FileZilla. I really have not used what's the other one? WinSCP much. They're similar in a lot of ways, and there's some minor differences. But the thing that I like about FileZilla is once I never use this quick connect stuff, because you got to go look up the username and the password and get all this stuff right, FTP dot whatever, and you get all it right, and then the next time you come back, you got to do it again. So I like to go File and Site Manager, and I set up my sites here with usernames and passwords in them. So basically, when I open FileZilla, I can get into my rods giftideas.club with 2 clicks. One, go to the site manager and select the right site, and then bang, click connect. It says I'll go ahead and abort the previous connection, and now I'm connected. Now, as you may or may not know about FileZilla, and most file FTP programs, file transfer protocol programs, they have 2 windows. The left side window is your what's on your host computer, meaning this is these are my files on my PC. I could go all the way up and show you that. And by the way, every time I want to go up a level, I just click this double dot folder. That's an old DOS convention. 2 dots meant go up 1 directory. So you can see that I could go all the way up to my C drive, and then it show desktop and all that. But I'm only going to go up as far as C, users, rod, and then I navigate down through app data. Oh, not application data, app data. And I click on that, and then I click roaming. And then I click locusware. And then I click OTP Phantom, and there's my projects, right? So we know we're open to the projects, and then I'll choose the correct project. I think I was using Moped 1B as my example. And at any time, I can just delete that previous folder. So we'll show you we can do this a couple of ways. Anyway, we're going to want the contents of the upload folder, just like we did last time. And there's a number of ways to do it. And again, over here, I'm going to make sure this is my hosting account, right? So I'm going to make sure I'm in the public HTML folder. And again, I can delete that previously upload.zip, which doesn't do me any good now. And I had created a folder already called Moped. Since we'll just pretend that's not there. So now it's gone. So I could either take and create a new directory over here, or directory and folder mean the same thing. Make sure I name it Moped. And why was I naming it Moped? Because that's what I told it was the name in my Phantom, right? And now I can just drag all of these files. Once I select them, I hold down the Shift key and select the bottom, selects everything in between. So every file that's in here. Now I don't normally want to grab the folder itself. I'm just grabbing the files in the folder. And then I drag them over here. Boom, I'm done. What was it important that I noticed that I do? In this case, I wanted to have a folder in there that was named the right thing. And then I wanted to make sure that I was grabbing the right files, making sure I have the right campaign, opening the upload folder, and dragging all the files into that file folder named Moped. And again, I could have done it another way. If you want to get rid of, I'll go get rid of Moped and show you another way. I could go and grab my upload file folder and drag the whole folder over. Bang. Notice it's a very little amount of content, and the file transfer is fast. Then I could rename this here to Moped. And again, I'm done. That's all there was to it. Or if I wanted to, I could make a copy of this folder and rename it, and then drag it over if I wanted to rename it. So I could make a copy first, call it uploads 1, rename uploads 1 to Moped, and just drag it over, and then I don't have to create a Moped folder over here. Lots of different ways of getting the same thing done. And the result is you got to have the contents of your upload folder into a folder called Moped. And the reason I'm using the folder called Moped is, one last time, that's because I already told it. I already told Phantom that was the name of the folder. If I named it Moped 2, then I would have to name that folder Moped 2. Whatever I put in here, that's got to be what the folder is named. Crystal clear on that? One other thing that I was asked to show people is we have this wonderful little tool called Link Swarm. And Link Swarm is like our little Swiss Army knife. It's got a whole bunch of little handy tools in here. If I can find the title bar and drag it over where I want it. One thing it does, it's got a pretty decent little keyword tool in there, right? But let's say I had all these here. Control A, so I select them all. Oh, I thought I did. Maybe I must have clicked somewhere else. Control A, select them all. And then I go Control C to copy them. And I can take them over in here, this Remove Duplicates tool, and I paste them there into the space right there. Now, what this does is, in case realize if I'm compiling a list of titles and keywords, chances are I'm using more than one tool to do it with. And every time I use more than one tool, there's going to be some duplicates. There's also likely to have been some spaces when I was pasting the lists together. And we don't want any spaces in between keywords. We wouldn't want to do this, for example. And have another one over here like so, where there's just a dead space in there. Because the program treats those spaces like they're actually titles. So we don't want any spaces before, after, or in between our titles. And we don't want any duplicates in here. So watch what this does. When I click on Remove Duplicates, it takes my keywords and all the way down. There won't be any spaces. There's none before, there's none after, and there are no duplicates in here. All right. So that's a great little tool. Then I can just select those all. Control A selects them all. Control C copies them. And I can go put them into my, I'm going to rename this one. Save it. Then I'm going to just go take those out by Control A. Paste, which will put my bigger list in there. And save it again. When I load it, I just Just got it saved. Load it. Open 2. Do a calculation now. I got buku keywords in there. I'd never do a run this big. It's like what, 38 million or something like that. That's way too big. You can probably bog it down. I don't know. I'm sure we could eventually do it, but it'd probably take me many hours or many days. We're tired of things taking us many hours or many days. We like stuff taking us an hour or less. So that's how we use the remove duplicates tool in LinkSwarm. Very easy to use. Just paste in what we're trying to remove duplicates from. Click the remove duplicates, and there's our output. So, any questions so far on what I covered? Good question. What about those accent symbols in foreign languages like Spanish and question marks? Should we remove them? Dougie has some info on those kinds of things using word merge, and he has some special tricks up his sleeve to remove special characters. I don't know if you have to remove all your question marks or not. Dougie?
Question marks would probably have to get removed, because if you had a question mark in the middle of a title, it would show up in the URL page name. Most punctuation I'm finding is it can cause problems, so it's probably best at this point to try not to use punctuation in your titles. Use clean titles. If you have way too many pages that can be made, how do you reduce it? Easily. Just cut down the number of...
Go back in and take my titles down to a reasonable number. You saw I had like 19,000 titles, right? And if I was using double, that'd be okay. I could use 19,000 if I use single. But if I use double, that means it's 19,000 times 19,000. That's a buku buttload of pages. All right.
That's going to be characters with accents at this point. I don't know for sure. I would have to test that to see. I don't tend to use any characters with accents. I prefer to, if it's an A with an accent, I would use just the letter A. The search engines all know how to understand that in the foreign language, so it would be best not to use characters with accents if you can. As to whether they're going to affect the software, in reality it shouldn't, but I would have to go over and try that. Rod, I know you just dropped your screen down. Well, I'll mention it. Go over the indexer in LinkSwarm. There's only one entry that you can put in there. You put in your domain name.
All right. I can go back to sharing my screen, and we could come up to this one and share it again, and then we could go back and grab LinkSwarm. I think right here. I think I'll take it off of this screen because we don't like the multiples. Let's just put it over here so you can see what I ordered for dinner. So I think we would go to Kickstart Indexing. Is that the place?
Yep.
And here we put our name of our domain. So in this case, it'd be going Rod's Gift Ideas.
I think you normally preface it with //
Like that?
Yeah.
And then click on Kickstart Indexing and watch it go to work. That's all there is to that. However, I'm always, I don't like I've never tried to use a bunch of force it down in the throat type tools of Google. Now, I'm not saying you can't use this or, but for me, I like to be way more subtle. and do things like have videos with the site dropped in it. And we did a webinar way back on using Video Mod Master to do a bunch of videos and point to the site and that kind of stuff. And we've also got a bunch of very cool domain tools coming, as some of our beta testers can attest to. And they've seen some of them and they haven't seen others, and they don't even know what all is coming, I don't believe. But we've got some very cool domain tools that are going to help you not only index but rank, and buying domains with pre-built-in authority will also speed the process along. So
Best of all, they'll have traffic coming along with it, so you can also send that traffic onto your OTP site.
Right. So those are the things that I was asked to cover, and I'm going to pass it off to Douglas, I believe, or unless I can't remember if I was supposed to pass it off to Doug or Kim. But
no, I'm fine. I'm just going to go over a couple more questions here, seeing as we've got them. 45 pages is the total per campaign. There is no more campaigns. These are projects, and one of the reasons why the name was changed was because you can create a project of any size, and it will split your site map under 50,000. Because that's what's important, is the site map remains under 50,000. So if you put in 200,000 pages, it would create 4 site maps. Probably create 5, because it would make them smaller. So you can do larger, but as Cliff mentioned the other day in the group, we've got to start using a little bit of common sense here. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Having sites with 5 million pages on it, is that a normal thing that you think Google would notice? So just be a little careful when, we can do these things now and do them very quickly, but it may not be the smartest thing to do. So just, I think Cliff was mentioning that he likes to do 250,000 pages, roughly around that number, not over that.
Per project.
Per project, and maybe 6 to 10 projects per domain. Is that the ultimate? No, it's a goal guideline you can use. You can do whatever you'd like. Google is going to change those boundaries as time goes on, so we all need to keep practicing and doing different things just to see what's going to happen. How many pages are ideal for one domain? As I say, Kenneth, there's no chance to really know that. Just vary it and keep trying different things. I'm keeping all my domains on under 400,000. So not domains, my projects, and I'm doing anywhere from 6 to 10 projects like Cliff does.
Now, I don't recommend making all those projects the same language. I like to use different languages and gain the benefit of the content rarity and content hunger that Google has in other languages, so that they start to rank. Let's say they rank something in Japanese it makes page 1. That gives your site, starts to give your site some authority. And it doesn't matter how rare the keyword is or how long tail it is. If it's ranked for number 1, it tends to give your site some authority. So there's a reason why we build tools that do lots of different languages, and that's just one of the benefits is you'll gain site authority by Google being hungry for that content.
So another common question we see is how many projects, which is really not the right question, but how many domains can I put on one 10 gigabyte hosting account? The answer is unknown.
Yeah.
Because we have no idea how many pages are going to get crawled by the search bots and actually then create the page that takes up the space. Over time, it should continue to keep growing, and it's going to be up to you to keep your eye on cPanel and see how much of your disk space is used. As a matter of fact, if you look at Rod's screen right now, you can see the disk usage on his account. So just make sure you're not getting near 100, or you got to start moving something off of there, maybe moving a domain to another hosting account.
Either that, or I could contact Costas and say, I think I want to go up to 10 or to 20 gigs from here. And he'd say, sure, and charge me for it. Okay.
How would you drop a link? Okay, we're getting kind of away from Phantom here, and this is more on YouTube. Putting a link to your Phantom site in the comments of a YouTube video. If you know where the description is for a YouTube video, paste the link in there. Full link, HTTP, whatever, and it will be a link right to your site. Also,
Cliff likes to drop them in the comments without the HTTP. So, you know, you could, it's just something that he mentioned a while back that he does, you know, as a tag kind of thing. You know, so you can tag them. There's lots of ways to do it. Any way that you do will help get it crawled and get it, but you don't want to overdo it. Again, Google's sensitive to having stuff stuffed down their throat. And the more you do that stuff down their throat type activities, they're likely to just put you at the bottom of their list of things they might get around to crawling someday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, you know, that's why I don't tend to use all these indexing services, because what you'll see when you use them is, yes, you'll see some indexing occurring right away, and then go back and check it a couple weeks later or a month later, and wow, a bunch of stuff isn't there anymore as far as being indexed goes. So I like to kind of be more subtle and let them just kind of find it when they like finding stuff without being without having it jammed down their throat. And
okay, I think at this point we're going to cut the questions off so that we can continue on with Kim's and my presentations, and then we'll come back to the questions and see if we have your queries by that point.
Now, there's a few things that we are not okay. You'll notice today that Clip pushed out a new update to OTP Phantom. There's also a new update to Locus for Control Panel, which now contains a tool that Doug is going to be showing you. It's the sitemap tool. But the OTP Phantom now has some advanced options that we haven't even begun to cover yet. Where the things that we are going to reserve for later webinars are, if you start asking about expired domains and how many and what's the advantage and how do I use them and all of that, that's in an upcoming webinar. You just have to tune in later. If you start asking about how do I do all the advanced tools and things that are on the advanced page, that's also coming later. And right now we want everybody to get down to basics. Oh, and one thing I learned, I've learned a couple of things in the last day or two. One is if you try to do your campaign and you don't bother to set up an overlay of any kind, it up and sticks. So you want to remember to at least, if nothing else, go in and select the overlay that's there by default called No Robot or something like that. And you've got to select one, and I generally select no color. And in other words, going back to Phantom, if I bring it up while I'm still here.
I'm on the screen right now, Rod.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
I'm pointing at those buttons for them right now. All
right, cool. So you have to click the set overlay color, and I either select transparent a lot of times, or at the bottom it says no color. And then when you set your clickbait image, I always want to say clickbait image, you can go, it opens up and lets you select an image. You could drop your own images in there, or you could select the single one that's in there already, and I think it's called No Robot or something similar to that. But you have to select something, otherwise it gets stuck. And how do I know, Dougie? Can you show me real quick? How do I know what I did select in a particular campaign?
What I would myself do is, here I am in my projects folder, and say I picked this project. There's a text file under your uploads folder that has the same name as your project. And if you open that text file up, you're going to see all kinds of funny things in here. There's the destination URL you're sending it to. Here's the OTP site and destination that you're going to put that on. If you've got anything to append before or after your keywords, what your keywords are. And here you get down to the clickbait image. And there's the path on your hard drive to where that image is, so the software knows to include that in the project when you run it. So that's the one there, clickbait image, and it should be pointing at your image file.
As I mentioned earlier, I thought it was called No Robot. It's not a robot.gif. That's the one that comes with it. And if you wanted to add some others, like one of the things I'm going to do is make a post in the forum of a number of GIFs that people have made and said you're welcome to use. Jeff made a few, for example, using a program called GIFsign. Honor Hart made a few and showed a video of how she goes about making the GIFs. So we'll put all that together in a folder, and you can, or in a post, and you'll be able to avail yourself of some pre-made GIFs if you want to use them.
Okay, so first topic I was going to discuss was if you hadn't noticed already, the LocustWare control panel has now been upgraded to version 3.9. When you do upgrade, you'll find a new little toy inside called Phantom Companion. And what this does is it is actually called Phantom Maps, and it will create a sitemap for your domain that has links to the project you put in the root and to all the projects you put in all the directories. And why this is important is that no matter what kind of sitemap you give to a search engine, very rarely will they ever index a file from a sitemap. What they will do is they will take note of the pages that you have in your sitemap, but they must come to your site and be able to crawl all the way from your root or domain directory and find all these pages to know that they're valid. So very rarely do they ever index a file right out of the sitemap. It's only a guide for them to look for those pages. So what Cliff has done by creating this tool is made it much easier for the search engines to find all the links to all of our sitemaps and see all the links to all the pages that we have there. So it's a really important little tool to use, and it couldn't be much easier. This is the tool. It has one button in the middle. Click that button, and it's going to tell me the names of the projects I have. So I pick the one project, and then I click on the other one, so I've selected all the the projects that I have on this domain. And if you remember, we already told it whether it was to be in the root or in the directory, right in our project information. So it's going to pick up that information, and when we click OK, it's now told me it's created a new folder, and I'll click on that. It opens it up for me, and here's my two new sitemaps that it's created for me, a sitemap.html and a sitemap.txt. And just for simplicity, I'll open up the sitemap.txt because it's a little bit easier to read. You can see it's grabbed the sitemaps here from the project that was in the root of my domain, and then it's grabbed the sitemaps and put the links in there for the one that was in the directory. So all I now have to do is to take these two sitemaps that have been created and upload those to the public HTML or root of the domain that I'm using and overwrite the ones that were there, and that's it. There's nothing else to do.
So I got asked a bunch of times, could I link different projects or even projects across different domains? Yes.
You could do whatever you wanted, but does it make sense? There's the big question. If you start linking all the domains together, it now becomes one big massive target. So that if somebody reports it and Google decides they don't like it, they find everything and it's all gone. You're best to keep one OTP domain on its own. Do not link it to any of the others.
That would defeat the purpose of having separate IPs.
Exactly.
Yep. You betcha. It's an insurance policy is what you're taking out by keeping them separate. Okay, now we've had a couple of other problems, seeing as I mentioned making sure that you overwrite the files. For those of you that know File Manager, there is a settings box over here. I have this option here ticked. I'm going to untick it and save again. And right now I'm looking at my public HTML and I do not see the htaccess file. Any file that has a period in front of it is known as a hidden file. And if we can't see that, we don't know what's there. So if you go into your settings and click Show Hidden Files, we can now see that I have an htaccess file in this directory. Now this htaccess file is something that is created by Phantom. And if you do the copy across like Rod was showing, it just may not overwrite that. And I want to show you when you go into the upload, there's a little box over in this corner and it says overwrite existing files. In order for you to overwrite any htaccess file that's already there, you have to click that. If you don't, it's not going to get overwritten and your site is not going to work. And we've had many people doing that so far. So if you're using File Manager, make sure that you overwrite any existing files so that htaccess file gets written to. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier when Rod was doing it, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that because a lot of people have run into that problem.
I'm going to answer. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I was just going to say, review. Click your settings. Make sure you've ticked Show Hidden Files. And then when you do your upload, make sure that you tick Overwrite Existing Files.
There's a pretty basic question here. It's Honor's asking, what is the difference between the root and the directory? Understand, all the folders are directories. The root one is just the bottom one, basically. When we say root directory, we're talking about the ones that is the most basic folder that all the other folders are into.
If you think, you think of your hard drive as drive C, that's the root of your hard drive. Any folders beyond that becomes subdirectories and subdirectories and subdirectories. It keeps going.
Right. A folder and a directory, we pretty much use as synonymous terms. And all a folder is a visual representation of a directory. If you went back to the days of DOS, They didn't have folders. They just had directories. But then when Windows came along and they were trying to make everything graphical and understandable to you, they started showing directories as file folders. And file folder just makes sense because I could put a bunch of individual files in there, or I could put another file folder and then another file folder inside that, and I could just have infinite number of file folders inside file folders. And that's the whole way a directory actually works.
So getting back to your question about the root of a domain. The root of a domain is the directory that is what would show if you typed into your browser mydomain.com. So the files that get used when you type in that would be the root of your domain. If you're using an account that has a single domain on it, it will be the public HTML folder.
That would be your root directory.
That is the root of your domain.
The only reason we don't say always root domain equals public HTML is because in the case of add-on domains where we've got 4 or 5 domains, we can't use the same public HTML folder as our root directory. And in those cases, you'll see Doug has a couple of, do you have add-on domains in there?
I actually don't have one on this.
Okay. All right. So if he did have add-on domains, if he wanted to, once he gets done doing all his keto diet on this one or whatever project he's doing, he might buy another domain about something else, aquariums. And he might choose to use his aquarium demo on the same hosting account, or he might choose to just go buy another hosting account. You know, Doug's rich, so he likes to spend money. And that's not true. I'm kidding. But you know, you have to look at how much space do I have left, and does it make sense to add on another domain, and how many campaigns am I going to have, and so on and so forth, to make the decision whether to use the same hosting account for multiple domains or whether to just go buy another hosting account and have one per domain. One domain per hosting account, I should say. But if it's the primary or the main domain that you bought the hosting account with, then root domain is the same thing as public HTML. It just gets tricky when you start to use add-on domains. Is that clear?
Okay, so we did the Phantom Maps tool. Were there any questions with regards to the Phantom Maps tool? Quickly running through here, and I don't see any.
Nope.
Okay, very important tool. Please don't forget to update your locust-aware control panel and start using that on any of your Phantom domains. Okay, the next thing, there's a fair number of people we have in our group that are local marketers. And they were a little upset with Phantom because there's only one box for titles. There's so many easy ways to do that. And one that I like to use is a site called mergewords.com. MergeWords is really great because you can enter in, excuse me, words in 3 different boxes instead of just 2, and it will do all the combinations for you. It has a lot of other special functions you can do if you open this up. What separator do you want between each of them? Type of wrapping that you want. So I typically like to just leave a space when I'm doing my local marketing. And if I bring that up, you can see I've got a bunch of keywords here for plumbers. If I come to merge words. I can stick those in here. And I want to show you something. Whenever you cut and paste, it quite often puts this extra line underneath. Get rid of it. Because as Rod was telling you with even Phantom or Hybrid, it would see that blank line and it would use it. So does this. So make sure you get rid of blank lines at the bottom. Now we come in here. We'll get the Seattle zip codes because I'm going to do my marketing to Seattle. And I paste those in here. And I'm going to leave that line blank just so we can see what happens. It's already telling me how many combinations I'm going to be able to make. And I just click the button, and there they are. All done, all 2,301. But as we get to the end, you notice I have a line that has no zip code on it because we left that one line blank. And so every keyword I have there is going to have a blank. There's septic tank, plumbing, and you see there's nothing there. So we've got to remember when we're using any of these tools, whether it's Cliff's or anyone else's, let's get rid of that line. Now you see my combinations dropped. I press merge. My list is done. I scroll to the bottom, and every one of them has the geographic information added to it. Now all I need to do is to select everything there, copy it, and we'll get rid of you. Bring up here. And if this was the campaign I was going to be doing, I would go. Actually, I should have cleared that first. Let me go back to merge words and grab it again. You can also use the mouse if you want. Back to Phantom, paste. And there's all my titles that I need for my local campaign. Now, I just want to let you know one thing. Let's push the calc button when I do that. So I have 2,262 titles, which is what it told me I was going to end up with. Whoops, Phantom. Let's just get rid of this now. I don't need it anymore. But look what happens if I do combinations. You never want to try and run 51 million in one domain, so be very careful what you're doing there. So in this case, I want to have a single and run my campaign. And that's all there is to merging your keywords with your geographic information or any other information if you've got. If you're not, even if you're not doing local marketing, you might have a couple of lists that you want to put together to create your keywords. Maybe you've got a bunch of buyer keywords that you want to add on the end of all your standard keywords. So this would be a tool you could use to do that and broaden your keywords out. Okay, so any questions?
I thought I saw one from Sylvie that I'm not sure we addressed yet. I think going back, I think we did. So the projects need to be on the same computer or remote. It's not so much. Well, yes, in order to use that sitemap tool, yes, they would have to be on the same computer or remote, or you could drag copies of them over there. But we talked about different domains on different hosting accounts. We don't really want to spend a lot of time linking those together. So just make sure we're not doing that. John wants to know, how did you get all the zip codes? There's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah, there's a great tool right within your Locustware control panel, and I tend to use it often, and I would have that in here called
Local Mash.
Local Mash. Oh, there it is right at the top. Beast Local Mash. We went through this one on another webinar here a short while ago, so you should be able to find it. But basically, Beast Local Mash allows you to pick a state, and it will create a list of all the keywords in any order that you want it to. It will give you 103 different ways that you can bring that up. And then you can take that list and select out from that state the counties or the cities or the zip codes that you want. And then you have a complete list of your zip codes with the city and state. You can also add on longitude and latitude, which some people do when they're putting in metadata for their videos or images. So it's a pretty simple program. You'd select a state that you wanted to use. So in this case, Minnesota, you click Run Program. It'll ask you what order you want the data in. You hit the button and away it goes, and it goes out and collects the list and comes back and gives you those results.
We're already running short on time to try to get to what Doug and Kim had, so I don't want to spend any more time on Beast Local Mash. If you ask us in the group, we'll point you to the right webinar where Doug covered that already. It was on a webinar just a couple weeks ago.
Okay, everybody who has used Hybrid and has now been playing with Phantom, if you wanted to slightly modify a project, say I wanted to make this Keto Diet 2. So I could go in and change my project name and go save. I've now saved a new project with all the same information. But say I want to change up the keywords. So I can go ahead and I can change up those keywords and do whatever I want, maybe change some of the titles, then save again, and I can run my project. So there we are. We've just created a new project, and that is going to allow us to continue to keep creating more and more. Now, if I wanted to create a project here, but I wanted to use exactly the same keywords, what do the keywords do? A lot of people still don't get it, that these keywords are not the keywords we're necessarily targeting specifically. They are the keywords we're using to create the content. So if we want to use the existing content of a previous project, I can click on that button, it'll open it up, and I'll open up my Keto here, go into my project folder, and I'll see this raw content.txt. That is the content that it scraped the first time. And I can just click on that, and it's now going to use that instead of using the keywords and going out and doing all the searching. What that does is it allows us to save some time. However, I can still go and change my site destination URL, my final destination URL, change the titles up, but my basic content is still going to be spun from the same base content file from the original. That is what using existing content allows you to do. I can still alter all this, but my content file will be identical as the first one. Now, people are having a problem understanding the difference between that, and if they come to the advanced option and try and clone an existing project. So let me click this, and I'm going to click on that one. It's going to say give this project a new name. So we'll call this one now Keto. Keto Diet 3. And then I click OK. Then it says give it a new OTP site destination URL. That's this one here. Okay. So in this case, I want to put that as /keto diet 3. So I'm going to alter the project that I was working on, and now I'm going to want to load it into the directory keto diet 3. Push the button, wait for the magic to happen. Clone is complete. Now if I go and open up Keto Diet 3, you'll see I now have the exact duplicate of Keto Diet, but I can now put it into the Keto Diet 3 directory. And I do not need to run this. It is ready to go. That's the big difference. I do not need to now come down and generate. It will create the project files for me. So if we were to go back over here again, my project files, projects, Keto Diet 3, upload. There's all my files ready to go. I do not need to run that project. Now, when you use an absolute clone, that does not mean that all the content on both sites will be the same, will be identical. Because when a page is created on either of those sites, it looks at that big file of content that we selected and it picks out random parts and puts them together in different orders. So every page is going to be unique. The chances of having a duplicate are almost next to nil. And that's really all the difference there is between using existing content, where you can then go change all the other parts and still have to generate the files, or a clone where you make an absolute copy, but just tell it that you want to put it in a different place. Hopefully that made sense. I don't see any questions coming up.
Nope.
So I think I've covered all that I need to cover.
Arnold wanted to know, do the titles change? No, they're going to stay
Nope.
the same.
Everything is identical, 100% identical. You want to change the titles? Then create a new project using your other one as a base, like I showed you, by changing the name, saving it, and then going and making your changes. Or you have an exact copy, which is what a clone is. I think, you know, if you took a small clone and threw it in the root of all 10 of your domains that you've got while you're building, what a great way to get the thing started and being noticed already by the search engines. So it's just something that you can do. You know, Cliff has many times said that he's used exact copies of his projects because they create different pages each time. So you don't need to change your titles and your content file. That can be identical and still will create a whole new site for you. Okay. Kim, are you going to display your screen?
Yep.
So the next part is Kim showing some of the ways to do translations of our titles and keywords into other languages, because with Phantom, you could just select a language and it did it automatically. I'm sorry, with Hybrid, I should say. And with Phantom, you have to do it a little bit differently. Still pretty easy.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, well, I hope my doesn't freeze up, because down here Windows wants to do an update. So let's hope this doesn't freeze. I was playing around with this and trying to find a real close match to what I could put into Google Translate to make it work, because it now says that your limit is 3,900 characters. So I took my list to Notepad++, and some of you probably can't see it, but maybe in the replay you can. This LESEL down here, this number says 2,828. These all that I have highlighted, that's how many characters are in here. So that's about how many that Google Translate's going to let me put in there.
See, what you need to understand is SEL just stands for what you have selected, and it tells you how many characters are in the words. Unfortunately, it doesn't count spaces. I looked up how to get Notepad to, or Notepad++ to count spaces as well. And there's a plugin, but the plugin's out of date and it's no longer being upkept. And then you have to find Plugin Manager. And it was pretty long and convoluted by the time it all came down to it. So Tim's going to show you some other easier ways than using the Google Translate tool.
Right. So I could put it in here and it would translate over there.
But if you have a big batch of titles to do, you're going to find that you have to do them in little batches because of the 3,900 character limitation now, and that 3,900 includes spaces between words, which don't get counted by Notepad++ as it works. However, there is a way to do it in Word, and there's an online tool that I found real quick. I'll paste that counts characters with and without. I'll paste the URL for that tool. It counts characters with and without spaces, and that's this tool right here. I'll paste it into the links for the. If you're bound to determine you want to use Google Translate instead of the other way that Kim shows you, which we think is much easier.
Yes. So I don't know if any of you have gotten out and played around with keyword lingo. It's in your control panel, and you can put a seed keyword in here and it will find other keywords for you and you can translate them. But I'm going to take this long list of titles I have here, and I picked 500 because usually that's about how many will get you the 250,000 for your one project. So I'm going to copy these and I'm going to put it in here where it says your keywords. Paste them all in there, and then I'll just select Afrikaans because it's right here at the top. And then I'm going to click Run. Just checking my registration. And I tried longer lists too, but since I'm doing around 250,000 per run.
Understand how she does the math on that? 500 times 500 is 250,000.
And each one I try and do just a little bit more, a little bit less, so I don't have exact one on each of my projects. It'll be here shortly.
When you use the double, as some people pointed out, you're not actually doubling the number 500. You're multiplying 500. You're squaring it in mathematical terms. So you're multiplying it times itself.
And if you watch up here at the top, it's telling you how many keywords it's gotten translated.
Ted wants to know, where is this tool located in that Kim is using? It's located in the Locustware control panel, and the title of it was called Keyword Lingo.
Almost there. Yep, it's done. It didn't quite do the 500. That some of the languages, they don't have words for our English words, so that's probably accounting for that. So I'm going to do Control A, Control C, and then I'm just going to, just so you can see what it looks like, and paste. See, there's all my titles in Afrikaans. And then you can just copy these and put them in to your titles on Phantom. And you can also use them for your 3 to 5 keywords too. Okay, there's just a couple things I wanted to go over. One was support. If you need to send a support ticket, if you could send us in an image of your Phantom dashboard with all your info on it, that will help us a great deal in helping you. And also, if you send us the URL of the site you're working on, that will be a big help to us too. And one of the issues that people are having is the clickbait image is not showing up. You get this little itty bitty box. And usually, most of the time, it's either because your URL structure is wrong, either you forgot to put like the slashes in there in the right spots, or you have too many, or you have a space. And so when you created that in the Phantom, that's where you would have left out something or put something extra in. And the other reason is you forgot to upload the clickbait when you were creating the project. So like when Doug was showing you those buttons there on the dashboard, you forgot to upload the clickbait one. Or you didn't enter the complete URL that you were using. If you had a directory, a subfolder, you forgot to put the full URL in your OTP destination URL in the Phantom. And then the last one is never ever put a trailing slash on the end of any URL that you put in to the Phantom on either of those URL spots. And that's all I got.
Okay, hopefully this was helpful to a lot of you that are beginning to build campaigns with Phantom. And of course, we're here for any more individual type questions, but we just wanted to get a chance to put out some of the more common questions and issues. And of course, we'll be collecting for next week's webinar, we'll be collecting any other types of questions that seem to be recurring. I mean, we try to answer them on an individual basis, but sometimes it's just if a number of people are having trouble understanding something, we like to cover it on the webinars. So that will be, you'll probably end up wanting to watch if you're having trouble with the file transfer process or the translation process, I recommend going back and watching the replay a time or two, because sometimes we go through things a little bit rapidly, and that should stand you in good stead.
Replays are on the forum. We post that many times. If not, just go to the locustware.com/forum and do a search for webinars, and you'll find the OTP webinar list. So they're all easy to find.
Doug tends to, well, all right, you can always get to the replay by just following the same link that you used to get on the live webinar. Will also take you to the replay within about an hour of the webinar being live. It shows up as available to watch the replay. However, sometimes, like last week when some bonehead was having this big echo problem, and it was kind of hard to listen to for 3 or 4 minutes. Took him that long to figure out it was him doing it. Doug will generally try to edit out little errors and faux pas like that, and then place it up on the forum links for people to watch. So the unedited version is available via the link right back to Webinar Ninja, and the edited version is available within a day or two on the webinar area of the forum.
Okay, I guess we are done for the night then.
Yeah, the part about somebody asked about makes you submit a new email address. No, if you go back in and sign in using the same info that you did the first time, you don't have to do a new email address to get back into the forum.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes,
Really appreciate you being here live, and let us know what you'd like to see in next week's webinar, and we'll get it covered. And I'm not swearing, but I imagine and hope that there'll be some new domain tools out, and we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about those as well. But nevertheless, you keep on plugging on learning OTP Phantom and making mistakes left and right. And so what? The mistakes is the way you really learn the things in depth.
Okay, well, thanks very much again, everybody, and we'll see you over in Discord.